I grew up in St. Louis, but from an early age planned to explore the world. Today I call Seattle home, but I've frequently lived in other regions in the US and overseas. Over the years, I have learned that photo stories emerge unplanned. I visited Peru because of its cultural legacy and world-class trekking opportunities, but my lens focused more on one of South America's largest megacities, Lima, and how millions of residents eked out a living in this urban sprawl. I then spent 6 months in Chile, arriving shortly after Augusto Pinochet left office. The legacy of his dictatorship was visible in street protests in downtown Santiago. I love this country and was able to see a place few can, the Beagle Channel. I secured a berth on a small cargo ship that sailed between Punta Arenas and Puerto Williams and had a great time with the crew. My first overseas trip to Asia took me to 5 different countries in 1989 and 1990, starting in Nepal. Nepal's poverty and religious traditions proved more visceral to me than its amazing mountains. My interest sparked in Nepal carried over to India, where I continued to explore the theme of religion in South Asia. On later trips to Asia, I continued combining holidays with work projects, as I did in the Philippines. There, I collaborated with the American Leprosy Institute and photographed 2 Filipino-run leprosaria and met some of the children of adults with this illness, the young ladies seen here. In Vietnam, my personal contacts enabled me to meet local residents and learn about changes in this rapidly evolving society. I enjoyed everything about the country, from its spicy cuisine to its traditional music, including the Dan Bao. My trip to Hong Kong, one of my shortest ever, allowed me to sample one of the world's most advanced transportation systems, which I explored by boat, taxi, bus, and rail. While visiting Indonesia for 2 weeks in 2009, I saw again how religion continues to adapt and thrive, in this case in Bali, despite the global influx of visitors. On the other side of the Asian continent, I travel widely in the Middle East and in Turkey. Though Turkey is 99% Muslim, it was once home to the Byzantine Empire and mostly Christian. It was also home to the first genocide of the 20th century, and my project documenting Armenian culture took me all over this beautiful and ancient land. Again, I stumbled on another story that I did not have time to pursue, the conditions facing the Kurdish minority of eastern Turkey, a place of bitter conflict for decades. Jordan gave me an excuse to visit the historic ruins of Petra, and also the areas where Lawrence of Arabia and the Arab armies launched their revolt against the Ottoman Empire during World War I in the region known as Wadi Rum. It was a beautiful place. Jordan deeply satisfied my historic muse. History and religion inevitably drew me to Israel, where I found still yet another layer of civilization I had also found in Jordan, the Nabateans. But the greatest pull was my interest in Mar Saba, the remote and longest continuously inhabited monastery in the world, Greek Orthodox, located in the Judean desert. The same year I visited Israel, I took a separate trip to Egypt. My interest in Christian monasticism took me to many far corners in Egypt, including the Sinai, to one of the most revered sites for all 3 monotheistic faiths, St. Catherine's Monastery. It is a site that is truly spectacular to behold. Also, I visited an oasis north of Cairo, which is home to 2 historic Coptic monasteries, including the more than 1,500-year-old Suryani monastery. Visits to some out-of-the-way monasteries were always greeted warmly. My first trip to Africa in 1997 focused on the 1994 genocide and its aftermath in this almost entirely Christian country. To this day, I remain deeply troubled by what I saw and learned. On the upside, I met many good people in neighboring Uganda, where I also contracted malaria, which cut short my plans for working longer in the region in Rwanda and Eastern Africa. I've also made several trips to Europe. By visiting friends in Denmark, for example, I was exposed to the country's innovation with bike transportation and planning. Denmark gave me a base to work on my most ambitious project, visiting more than 20 concentration and death camps in 6 European countries. This proved to be one of the most rewarding undertakings I have ever done, but one that left me completely exhausted. I completed this project in 2001. That year I visited the Greek island of Rhodes and met one of the few survivors from the island's Jewish community who was sent to Auschwitz in 1944. My subsequent trip to Europe let me return to my old loves of history and culture. And Italy let me have pure fun with visual storytelling premised on beauty alone. I was lucky to call one of the world's most spectacular regions my home twice in my life. I first lived in the southeast Alaska city of Sitka for a summer. It's a place steeped in strong Tlingit traditions that remain alive and well today. In 2004, my job took me to Anchorage, a perfect base to explore the mountains literally next door, as seen here, and all over what locals call the Great Land. Alaska remains larger than life. The Iditarod race, which is run every March, captures the spirit of the original residents and their canine companions. There is no greater sporting event in the world, in my opinion. Alaska is home to 5 different native groups, each with distinctive languages and traditions. The Inupiat on the Arctic Ocean still hunt whales, albeit with high-powered rifles today, and backhoes that lift the whales from the water to the beach to be carved communally for food. But of all the places I have photographed, none compares to Greenland. I made 3 separate trips to document the Danish Home Rule Territory's culture, history, and landscapes. On each journey, I met residents who made me feel at home, such as my friend Lars. Lars welcomed me into his family, and he and his father Mogens took me seal hunting in perhaps one of the most beautiful fjords I have ever seen, near the city of Sisimiut on the west coast. Greenlanders have a tradition of hospitality, and I found that everywhere in the smiles that greeted me throughout the area. My journeys took me to nearly every Greenlandic community, including the northernmost city of Uummannaq, where I stayed with Lars and his wife, and also had some of the most amazing views of any in the Arctic. In southwest Greenland, I photographed numerous historic sites of the Viking settlers, including Eric the Red's settlement called Brattahlid, today called Qasiusuk. There's nothing quite like an Arctic sunset in Greenland. Though I've been traveling less the past couple of years, I continue to find great stories to tell in my own backyard in Seattle. As the old saying goes, wherever you go, there you are. That still feels spot on today.